Gundam.tk presents Serpent Custom. Hey again everybody, it's Robert184, 2 R's 2 B's from GundamReviews.net, and as a very tiny Relina Dorian hops into the cup, you've already seen the unbox and the plates and all the parts that they've turned into, but now it's time to turn those parts into the mobile suit of the 1/100th high grade Serpent Custom from Gundam Wing Endless Waltz. When he's all put together, he's certainly going to look like a solid looking thing. I wonder if he's going to prove to be a brick, however. The colors, despite all my initial concerns, are looking good with the 2 tones of brown. The red on the shoulders really add to something. The thrusters are very visible from the back, as is the olive green on the feet and that ever small part on the waist section. It's a little bit, you can go back and see here that you're going to have the thrusters. They're not necessarily visible, but they certainly do add to the illusion that he's just got that much more width, as the waist is otherwise his smallest part. But you have to say that this guy is pretty flimsy and he feels like a really hollow doll. As you just saw, the legs do not feel secure at all as they're attached on here, so don't expect him to do anything like the splits. If you bring them forward, they are going to actually stay in place, so I gotta give him props for that. But the bend at the knees, you're only going to be able to bring it up and bend it about 75-80 degrees down there. The ankles are going to move off to the side and front all right, and back as well. That's going to move that thruster which moves. The upper body is going to have all sorts of mobility though. Some of it is somewhat problematic. You can twist the body around there. I suppose if you played with those thrusters, you might get a little bit more in terms of rotating. Doesn't seem to want to do anything more than that. The arms are going to go all the way around, and you can see the way that they're attached on here. You've got all these parts. First of all, the shoulder is going to move up and down as well as up and down, but you can also move this part, the arm up here, which is a little bit awkward the way it brings this part into the shoulder, but you've got to be careful because this shoulder is just on a ball joint. Already it popped off on me when I was just trying to do a simple pose. I don't know if I showed this off before, but the elbow is going to give you just above 90. You can just call that 90, I suppose. The seal's not going to be a problem. It's going to do well rotating around, and the hand is going to be on that point, so you can plug it in. It's not actually, it's not going to have a plug-in position if you want to keep it in deep. It's just going to sit there and look like he has very skinny wrists. And the Custom had better hope that in addition to nobody attacking him close combat, that nobody attacks from below or above, because his head is only going to pivot left and right. In terms of height comparison, I thought I'd show this guy off next to his non-master grade bad guy companions, and you've got the 1/100th Providence, which is non-grade, a little bit higher quality I'd say than the old high grade from the 90s. But in terms of overall size and height, the head is going to be ever so slightly smaller than the Providence, which seems that this guy's a little bit bigger than he should be, or this guy's a little bit shorter. But in terms of actually filled outness, if you want to use that as a word, the Serpent certainly is going to hold his own, despite the fact that the Providence is a big bulky guy to begin with. With huge shoulders, the Serpent certainly holds his own, although the head is going to look a little bit small and he certainly doesn't have that massive backpack just to add that much more bulk. That shiny bit of bling there on the right is the 1/100th gold frame Amatsu, which is looking pretty sharp. And it's a much newer kit, of course, than even the Providence. And it is going to be very skinny in terms of the body, in terms of the legs. The legs are going to spread out, unfortunately, if you have it on a weak shelf without any resistance underneath it. But overall, the Serpent's head is much more in line of where it should be. It's quite a bit shorter than the Amatsu. And the Amatsu has that massive backpack, which again just fills it out to the side and top and bottom. And there might be the odd person who says that Hiro Yui and Setsuna FSA shared some characteristics, or at least at the beginning for Setsuna anyway. Here you've got the Master Grade 00 Gundam, and this is the 7-sword mobile suit variation of it. The head is going to be a lot bigger, taller, and even though he's a skinny guy, just the 00 Gundam just comes across as being a little bit more filled out than you'd think, thanks in no small part to the weapons that he's got attached on all over the place, despite the fact that they're not actually in hard points. The shoulders here, the drives actually come across as being a little bit smaller than the Serpent Custom, but that big sword is just going to bulk him out in addition to that weapon in his hand. So let's show off some weapons on this guy, with the easiest one being just to slide open that shoulder there and to reveal the missiles. Which, despite the camera being a little bit low here, I actually think look pretty good. They would stand out a lot more if they were in a different color instead of that drab olive green, which matches the feet and the backpack. But anyway, he still looks cool, and it is a solid gimmick for sure. The bazooka in place is going to look absolutely massive, but like with any Gundam bazooka that I've ever